the FNL Network talk show.
Welcome to FNL Fashion News Live. I am your host, Holly Hester. Happy Memorial Day, everyone. Join me for tonight's episode as we welcome Sasha Spanga, the lovely Eugenia, and Bethany Robertson. How are you guys doing tonight?
Doing great, thank you. How are you doing?
Good. You guys look all relaxed and everything. How was your Memorial Day weekend so far? How's your Memorial Day?
So great. I just came back after not seeing my kids for 2 months and traveling all around Europe. So it's really nice to be back to LA.
That's awesome. And it looks like you have beautiful weather where you guys are. You guys look like you're indoors. Sasha and Bethany both look like they're more indoors. And Eugenia has a lovely view of a city somewhere unknown. It's probably what she wants right now, but she looks lovely and the scenery looks lovely. So let's get started. A lot going on, right? A lot across US and a lot of talk of things. And everyone seems to be enjoying this weekend because many have paid the price for us to have freedom for it to do whatever we want on this day. So it seems fun. So basically, bassist Charlie Cohan, bassist and founding member of the band Train, Hey Soul Sister, and many other songs that we know about, that we know and love, dies at 58, unfortunately, after slipping in the shower. I don't know how that happens, right? So Meet Virginia is one of it. Dope, Drops of Jupiter were among his many. He announced substance abuse back in 2003 when his band mentioned that he was in a lot of pain. I want to know what each of you think about this, about his music, about his life, about what his bandmates are saying about this, and about his journey, which the media has publicized. We're going to go ahead and start with Eugenia on this.
Yeah, I mean, it is always really sad. And sorry, my dog has an opinion on that as well. It is always very sad to see when people lose their lives so early, so to say, especially when people have so much to give. And I'm sure, he was in the process of not only teaching a conservatory, but also working on a new film. So I'm sure he had so much unfinished work and, that we would have loved to have. It is very sad. You can dig down the rabbit hole. I just have a lot of friends who are in the music industry. And unfortunately, music industry of itself is just one of the toughest industries. There's a lot of abuse of power. And I know it's been shown in about Hollywood in the recent couple of years, everything started to come out on the surface. But I feel in the music industry, there's a lot of things that are not talked about, even though a lot of singers, kind of started taking control over the content and, the label, but you can see a lot of mental breakdowns with all kind of singers, from a long time, all the pop stars, especially people that are made as, kids in the entertainment business. It is very sad, understandable where, the medication of pain comes from, because there's just no justice or no, so to say, union to stand up to the artists, especially now with the artificial intelligence, so to say, overtaking the artistic work in a lot of senses. And, the salary is definitely mismatched, where the music can be reused and copied, and so many things that are not protected in the artist world. I can understand, the medication of it. So to say, what really happened to him, I wasn't in the shower, and it's so easy to blame something or kind of make a person into a bad person when you don't actually know. It's just easy to blame. You don't know what was happening in his life at the moment. He might have slipped, and life is really precious. It's, you never know. Every day I think about it, and his songs were obviously an example of that. Just his talent and his music, I think it's a gift to the world, and it's just a reminder of how things are, and maybe we can be somehow aware of that. And also, just by example, by the way, where we buy music and how we support artists, change the industry one step at a time, because I think everybody's responsible. So to say, we're collectively all together, right? Like this kind of event touches everybody's life in some way, but what are you going to do about it? So that's what I think about it.
Absolutely. And I love that you just said that it's so precious and that is life. Who knows what it is? And we all think about that. I think that you brought up an interesting point. Not only do we think about life and how precious it is, but we also think about we could slip in the shower the next second. So it's one of those delicate situations. God forbid it happen. But you're right in that sense. In the way you said that, it's very true. We ourselves could, the wrong way stepping in the shower. It's so easily done. Things are so easily done and things are so delicate. Did you like his music? Did you find yourself like his music or any of his songs? Was any of his music, could you relate to any of it?
I mean, it's really hard to point one song, but I think he was just brilliantly talented, musician. So I wouldn't point one song specifically as a legacy, but I think, he had so much work to give.
That's awesome. I love the way you said that. I want to go to Sasha. What are your thoughts about him? Did you love his music? Lovely and talented Sasha over there, being very quiet and listening to us all. What did you think of his music? Consider where you're from and the culture and the music culture. What about that? Was music any different from the cultures that you're listening to? Did you like him as a bassist? Have you followed his story? Want to hear your thoughts? Go ahead.
Yeah, like to me, I don't know that much about him because I'm from Denmark, and I have not heard so much of his music. But at the same time, of course, I feel bad when I hear that story that he fell in the shower, and normally we always have an idea of these stars, like these enormous stars that when they die, it always has to be some like really big tragedy, like very dramatic and,
Yes.
like the overdose or, something terrible has happened. Or they commit suicide, and I was thinking maybe where he committed suicide in that way, but then I read about it and it was not a suicide attempt or anything like that. So it was actually just an accident. And so that's something that we don't hear that often, like something that is so, it almost seems kind of like a joke. I thought it was like a joke when I just read it. I was like, there must be like something more into this story, especially like when it's a big star like that. But it just seemed like, yeah, it was just an incident that happened. And I just feel so bad for his family and his colleagues. And, I just think that's like, what a horrible way to die. Like just at like that way, like being healthy. And it would be different if he was a sick man or something happened to him, but this was just an incident that just occurred and then he died. I think that's such a sad thing, and such a young age still, because he was not that old. Yeah.
So what do you think, because you're from Denmark, what do you think about substance abuse? And we all know it's a big issue today. What do you think about substance abuse? And, where you're from, you have a different angle on it, because of what the media is saying and that. Yeah.
Yeah, we're used to that in Denmark. We're the Vikings, we're used to drinking a lot, and that's a part of our culture. So I think that most people, they're just like, well, yeah, of course, and not saying that we take hard drugs or something like that, but it's just, it's a part of our culture in Denmark to drink a lot. And it goes way back to the Vikings in Scandinavia. So we're not that judgmental about that. And I think that we just, see right through it as being something that is just human. It's just being a normal human being, and we cope in different ways. If you're under stress, a lot of stress, and I think you are, like when you're a big star and you do music and you have something to live up to, then of course you're gonna, drink on the side maybe, or you're going to be addicted to something. I think that most people have that tendency in them to be kind of an addict. If it's not being addicted to alcohol, then maybe drugs, or maybe going to the gym, or there's always something you could be addicted to. But we see very lightly, and
Absolutely.
yeah, we see it as being, well, that can happen. It can happen. Yeah.
I love it, and you just touched on this. You basically said that where you guys come from. In other words, you can hold your liquor. You've made a lifestyle of, you're tough.
Yeah, like
I
when
feel
we
like
go
that's a
out.
certain way. No, yeah.
Yeah, when we go out, we're not shy to drink a lot, and it's sometimes it's just like, it looks like a crazy town. And I remember when I just moved to LA, and everybody was like, "Oh my God, Sasha, aren't you scared when you're down in the metro, in LA metro?" And I was like, "No, that's just like in Denmark. When people get drunk, they're so weird, and they run around, they grab you, and you're like, and they're normal people, but they're just drunk, So it's just a part of the culture. And we pee outside just like animals, and it's, well, sometimes it's not that charming, but it's a part of the culture. And we don't frown about it. Like, we always look up, like we look forward to the weekends, like Friday. Then we have a meet up at a bar, we drink a lot of alcohol, and then we go out and a party, and then we get really, really wasted until it's Monday, and then we have to go back at the office.
So your perspective is, as long as you can hold your own, just don't let anything that bad type of happen. And so you're basically you're kind of coming in that angle, like, it was, and they're saying it was accidental, so great, so more power to him, type of thing. He can hold his own. I love it.
Yeah, well, of course we have a responsibility, and also to our kids, and to people outside, but again, it's also being human. We're just human beings. And I don't know, like, I think, of course, if you have a problem, you're an alcoholic and you can't stop drinking and all these things, well, then you need help. But I think there are a lot of people, they know how to drink, and there can be some kind of double standard sometimes, and we always praise stars being the most perfect people in the world. And when they show that they're just human beings, then they're torn down and being, almost like seen as a villain, and I think that's kind of sad.
I love it. So Sasha thinks that, she loves the fact that she thinks it was really accidental, and that the whole substance thing was actually in a negative light, is kind of what you're saying. And I love what Eugenia said. Life is so delicate. You could even find yourself slipping, it's like it could happen to you at that time. So appreciate life. I want to know, Bethany, what is your generation saying about this? Do you think it's accidental? Do you find life precious like this? Are you choosing the pro Charlie side and know that it was accidental? Are you what kind of side are you choosing here? Or you think it was substance abuse and it's too publicized? What are your thoughts, Bethany? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I honestly hadn't heard that this happened until you brought it up, to be honest, just because I'm on a different side of like the internet, my generation being what it is. But I have heard his music, it was playing all the time and like model in the malls and such when I was like a kid, I remember hearing it all. And it was good. I mean, it wasn't really my cup of tea, but I didn't hate it. So, I have a lot of respect for that type of work. It takes quite a bit of brilliance to be able to do stuff like that. Like, I just can't imagine, just composing a song. I could not, just things like that. It takes a lot of skill and brilliance to do that. So first and foremost, I have to appreciate that. But as far as like the substance abuse goes, it doesn't shock me. It is something that is in the industry quite a bit. And even in fashion, you see it sometimes with a lot of high pressure on like some big top designers and models and things like that. So it isn't too uncommon to hear about stuff like that. It's very unfortunate, but it's kind of the way the culture is, because it's so high pressure. You have all this attention on you, and you have all these deadlines that you have to meet. You have to go to this, and you're just trying to keep it all together. And for some people, just the way they do that is through drugs. And it's unfortunate, but it happens. I mean, I've seen it happen. Unfortunately, I'm young, but I've seen it happen to some of my peers, and I'm like, how did you get there? But I get it. So it's an unfortunate thing, and I think really kind of treating the cause of it, trying to treat people with more humanity, I think is important. As Eugenia said, life is precious, and I 100% agree with that. It's sad to think that that's how he died, like just slipping in the shower, but it's not like the most out there thing, I guess. Because like I have heard of that happening. And he was house sitting for someone, so for all we know, he wasn't used to that shower. So I think, you know, that makes him more prone than if it were his own shower. And that is very young to pass away at. Like, that's younger than my dad, and I'm like, wow, okay. That's pretty young. But yeah, it's just really sad to think of someone passing like that. It definitely would have been an accident. Like, these things happen. It's just the way it is. Life is fragile. Our bodies are fragile. We need to kind of take care of them, but the things around us can be more dangerous than they look. So just taking caution and taking care in every step of the day is important. But yeah, those are just kind of my thoughts on it. You know, it's sad, but it's life.
I love it, and I love how you guys are all saying that it happens, and I love that in particular, because it shouldn't happen, yet it's so big right now, and why it's such a shame, but I mean, as society, what do you do? What do we do? And it's so much different when it's personal to us. And it hurts all the more. It'd be different. Oh, he slept in the shower. And there are many actually right now that would actually laugh at that. But the people who actually have done that, like, I have heard that, like, someone was like, how can you sleep in the shower? Type of stuff. Like, you just be respectful. Just be respectful. I don't know, man. You've been in a robe too, bro. Like, you're in your robe in the shower, the water's all there. It's like, it's there, it's puddly, it happens, the remains of it. All of a sudden you're mindless, you're doing other things, someone texted you on the phone, all of a sudden you hear music playing, and boom. So also, it just
like,
happens.
if you're using a body scrub or something, with shea butter.
Yes.
Because I've done that several times. I'm like, oh my God, and you're scrubbing
She's
it.
going there.
Yeah, and then like slipping. Like, I've tried that several times, I'm thinking, oh my God, like that would be horrible to die in the shower, It's like,
so you're saying the body butter, so you're saying that the body scrub actually fell to the bottom of it, or it was on your body? How explain this,
like
Sasha?
Like the body scrub, you can scrub your, like the skin cells, so you get like better skin.
Yeah.
And that's with shea butter, and shea butter is so slippery, and it gives a lot of moisture to the skin. But at the same time, you have to be careful, like, especially in the shower, and then it goes down on the tiles, then you can actually, like, fell on it, so it's very slippery.
Yes, absolutely.
Several times we're just like, oh my God, like slipping on this shea butter thing, with scrub and everything. So yeah. What you don't
has anyone been? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, what you don't do for beauty, like sometimes you do so many things for just, beauty. And
yeah. In fact, if anyone else has a body thing to share about a body don't do right now, about a lotion don't do right now, it's falling in the shower. Now we're giving tips about how to have a shower. That's
how to avoid it. Yeah.
How to have a shower the right way.
Exactly.
Bethany's saying, oh, doing it like, I don't know, like,
Call me old.
drying
I
off
use
your
the
feet.
shower mat. I use a bathroom mat. Like, I'm not taking the risk. It's slick in there. Like,
Be very slippery.
Yes. Yes. So, do you think that he had a mat? Do you think that he had a mat
probably
when he
not.
did,
He
like
was at a
when
friend's
his friend
house.
showered? Wasn't in the shower? Yeah, yeah. That's crazy, right? Who knew what was down there? Who knew his shower routine? He was probably shaking up, the poor thing, because he wasn't in his shower. You know, he didn't know what to do. I don't know. Anyone been in their friend's shower? Some really bad things have happened in there. Oh, I could tell you some stories myself. Yeah, it's bad. It's bad. So speaking of entertainers, our how-to video of our next is going to be a shower tutorial. God knows we'd all need it, right? So
Yeah.
speaking of music entertainers, P. Diddy trial. Ironically enough, there's a TV host in the UK who was accused, ironically, because laws are different in UK, and you know, crimes there at an all-time high. Rape is at an all-time high. For some reason, it's been, you know, really bad lately, right? But their laws are different. This host is literally arrested, right? Well, P. Diddy is not arrested. And this surfaced, his resurfacing rape and drugs and all that stuff, this trial that he's been involved in, it goes way back to the 1991, right? And it apparently resurfaced in 2003, and now it's back, right? Nobody cares, everybody cares. Although not formally charged or arrested like the TV host was, this interesting, P. Diddy seemed apologetic only when caught, right? We got a video of you, bro. Oh, you didn't get me. Oh, you got me. I see my face, right? Okay, so in this article, when he was found out, what are your thoughts on UK laws? What are your thoughts on the crime rates in America versus this? Do you think that they went harsh on the TV, more harsh on the TV host than on P. Diddy? What do you think about his situation? Do you think he's guilty? Do you think the outcome is fair? I want to start with Sasha on this.
Yeah, I think that it's like a really, really horrible thing that happened with the PDD situation. And I think that, you know, when you look at it, and, you know, I always think that you're innocent until proven guilty, you know? So if someone says, well, you did this, they have to prove that it's correct. You know, I think that it's so horrible if someone gets evicted for something that they never did, you know? And so I'm always very careful of not putting a person in a situation and saying, well, that person is guilty, you know? So I think it's really important not to say anything until we know the facts. But when you say, when you see a video of him abusing wasn't it his ex-wife? Yeah. In a hotel.
His long time, yeah,
like partner.
Yeah.
And yeah, and you know, she was really treated poorly by him. You know, it was really horrible. And
how was she treated horribly by him?
Well,
like in your eyes, how was
like,
that?
she was walking out of the hotel room and went to the elevator, and then he ran after her with a towel, you know, covering himself, and then he started, you know, kicking her and, you know, throwing a bottle after her. And, you know, it's like, it's domestic violence, of course, but it's just, it's even worse than that, because he treats her just like a piece of meat, you know? And he didn't even apologize for that when that came out, because there was no evidence at that time. Until the evidence came out, then, you know, he apologized. But I just saw the apology, and it just seems so, yeah, not true. You know, it just seemed so phony in some sense, and because he was called out on it. And I,
Yeah.
you know, and I think it's a really, really bad thing when those things happen to women, and that men that are high status, you know, being you know, famous singer or being a famous actor, and you know, doing domestic violence, and people are just like, oh, he would never do something like that. I think that's so horrible, because then you as a woman has to prove, okay, is that true or not? And how will you prove that unless you're, you know, walking around with a camera all the time filming what happens at home? And no one does that, you know. So but here she was lucky enough that it was in a hotel, you know, and there was surveillance camera, you know. So and I think that that was really lucky that it came out. But at the same time, when you think of it, he was caught in the UK and he was let go of that, you know. And I think that, you know, when you do a crime, you know, that crime is like domestic violence, is it should be much harsher, you know, like the when you do a crime like that, you know, it's like it's so close to almost murder, you know. It's like really, really bad. Like when you get kicked like that, she could have died, you know. She could really have died if he kicked her in the head or something, you know. And it didn't seem like he was actually thinking. Maybe it just went like off of him. He doesn't even know what he did, you know. There's some guys that are like that. So I think
Eugenia,
that,
what are your thoughts? Oh, I'm so
yeah, I
sorry.
just think that
Go ahead.
to be much harsher. And I think that this
Yes.
could be a good example for the future
Yes.
of men out there to treat women with respect and dignity. And if they don't want them, then, you know, then break up, you know, like say, I don't want to be with you anymore. And it doesn't work out. Don't start abusing a person. Don't hit a person. Don't beat a person up. You know, there's so many narcissistic men out there. And I think that this is a really great lesson to be learned. Treat women with respect.
I love that. I love that. I love that you said that this is the example, especially because,
Yes.
you know, yeah. And there's definitely a generation coming that needs to learn that. I love it. And Eugenia, I'm sure you have got a lot to say on this. This is a whole, you know, mouthful of a subject. Go ahead. What are your thoughts on this? We like or we don't? P. Diddy.
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, I can agree with Sasha on the fact that domestic abuse a lot of times is really hard to prove, especially with somebody who's put up on a pedestal. I want to add, it can be a woman or a man, you know, there are also domestic abuse against men. There's trafficking against men. So I think power, it is a thing of its own, you know, and it amplifies whatever qualities you bring. And unfortunately, when you're unstoppable and you act like a mafia, a lot of times, you know, people don't understand, but living in Hollywood, I figured out very well that people operate on a kind of a gang system, you know, there's no rules, the morals are thrown out of the window. A lot of time it is about narcissism and people want to get just to fill that hole no matter what. And, you know, it's street rules, you know, there are people who come, who are bullies, who can grab it fast, and they feel like there is no laws, like they're invincible. Basically, you can look at somebody like O.J. Simpson, and you know, could never stand P. Diddy. I could always sense it, you know, there was a sense of like entitlement all the time around him. He would come to model agencies and ask models to attend his parties, but he would always be like very separate and, you know, very precise. Oh, you can touch me, you can't touch me. Like he is definitely somebody who's up in his head. I think it's just disgusting what he did with child musicians. And you can see, I don't know, like Justin Bieber and Usher, you know, and like if you go down the rabbit hole in that sense, you can find a lot of abuse. It is very unfortunate. There's a lot of emotional abuse as well, you know, that is almost impossible to prove because people use manipulative tactics. To the point where the victim believes that, you know, that person, the victim, is actually to blame and responsible for something. And I think maybe that's the case with Casey, because obviously it's a person who was in a sort of relationship. It wasn't just something happened and, you know, a person walked out. It's a person who had a Stockholm syndrome, who believed that it is impossible, you know, to get out, or, you know, didn't come out so many years ago. So I think it's very unfortunate. There's a lot of laws that are very complicated, you know, how to prove if you're guilty, if you're not guilty. There's so many minor details, and I've been researching a lot of different trials, you know, beginning from like Harvey Weinstein trial, which is also not black and white, it's very gray, you know. And that's why I think it's important to say it's not only like women, you know, but men too can be a victim of abuse and violation and power games. And I mean, I think it's fortunate that cancer comes out on the surface all the time for us to see. You know, I think more and more stories come out thanks to social media or cameras or footage. And that's why I think predators definitely are more cautious. They're still out there, like literally just coming from Cannes Film Festival. You know, you can see the human nature in a very interesting, amplified way, especially when you have, you know, the lifestyle and cameras in your face. I think people really don't feel like there is any kind of morality or there's wars coming, or, you know, there's any kind of humanity or empathy in a way. But I feel it's a good thing that's unfolding, you know, and I'm curious where it's gonna go. I'm glad that the footage came out. I think it is self-sufficient because the words can be twisted and manipulated in so many ways, but you know, the image says 1,000 words. So I'm, you know, really glad that the evil kind of like comes out and shows its face, and we can, you know, learn from that.
Right. Well, because where you are from, I'm going to ask you this now. Do you like UK laws versus what do you think about that? And what do you think about even in Great Britain, in fact, that, you know, they're allowed to make, you know, money and sex, things like that, and that kind of comes into play here in the whole game they're playing. Do you believe in US laws, and do you favor them over UK laws? What are your thoughts on that? And do you think that UK could actually improve their laws? Like, in other words, you're bringing a lot of awareness. This is amazing that you're saying these things. What are your thoughts? How can they continue to improve? What are your thoughts on US versus UK?
Yeah, I feel, you know, I'm not specifically a lawyer, but I do research of different laws, and I think they're incredible advocates for victims of domestic abuse. But, you know, I feel each country can, you know, it has different history of law and where they come from. I think, you know, we can all unite on that level and learn from each other. I think it is an international case. It's not belonging to one country or the other. It's not like you can escape and be an abuser, you know, in one country and not the other. I think, you know, these days we're all interconnected.
Right. I love that. And we definitely are. We can definitely all come up higher and just kind of cancel abuse out together. Oh, what a euphoric world it would be if abuse were no more. I love it. Bethany, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on, you know, UK laws and US laws and what's being allowed right now? Are you agreeing with everyone, the fact that women and men should be both treated fairly in that angle, you know?
Yeah, so I'm not super familiar with UK versus US laws just because I've been stuck in the US for a while, so I have not traveled outside of it. I have a passport. It's ready whenever funds get there so I can go, but don't really have a whole lot I can add to international law. I know like more about fashion laws like in UK and Europe and everywhere else just because I pay attention to that. But as far as like, you know, your basic don't be a butt law, you know, like don't hurt other people sort of law. I was trying not to swear there. You know, as far as those go, like the foundational moral ones go, I'm not as familiar with how they handle it, but you know, obviously the do not murder is there. So I can't really speak for how they handle it. But as far as the way women and men should be treated, absolutely. If whoever's a victim, you know, treat them with respect. You know, every person deserves to be treated with respect unless they're the abuser, in which case they need to get taught a lesson of some kind. Probably mandatory therapy is my thought, because clearly there is something wrong in their head if they're going to keep on doing this. So figure out what's wrong with them and then go from there. Because, you know, this doesn't start out of nowhere. You don't treat someone the way he did. I saw the video. It was horrible. You do not do that out of nowhere. He's done that before. He definitely has treated her that way before, and it is horrible that she was treated that way. I am glad she was able to get out and survive, because that could have ended very differently.
She had been with him for a long time, it said. A long time. And that's why she considered it as sex trafficking, all that. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Horrible.
it was pretty bad. But you know, it is kind of that frog in a boiling pot of water that they always use as the analogy. It really is kind of like that. If you ever do go through that, because they're not gonna start out beating you up from the first day that they meet you, because they know you're gonna run. You know, I met a guy once and I was like, oh, he's so sweet, he's so nice, and then the little sign started to peer in and I was like, oh, okay, I'm out of here. It's like being
Good
very
for
weird.
you.
Fortunately, there was no power imbalance. It was literally just another guy my age. But you know, that power imbalance, I can't really imagine being in that because it plays with your head. So yeah, and if it's male or female, like we saw with Drake Bell, how he was abused and how these other men have been abused in such a way, it's horrible. Abuse is terrible no matter what. It does not matter if it's a woman or a man. And it is sad that men often get laughed at when they're coming out about this stuff. Like I've seen, you know, just even the minor things that, you know, like it hasn't been like super physical, but they've been sexually harassed or something like that, and they get laughed at. And it's like, this isn't a laughing matter. It's just not okay, whoever it's happening to. And it doesn't make you lesser than because it happened to you. If anything, it says more about the other person. But you know, women should be taken seriously when they come forward with this, but as should men. They should not be laughed at. And you know, believe within reason. There are people who make things up, but you know, you shouldn't just discount someone because it just sounds unrealistic to you. It should be based on, okay, did this actually happen? Yep, okay. You know, let's move forward here. But yeah, those are just kind of my basic thoughts on that.
Wow, I love it. We all got told the right way by Bethany. I love it. We kind of need to applaud here. I love it. That's such good. You're so smart, especially for being a different generation. You are so smart on that. I love it. And there's just a generational divide here between different generations, and it seems like the youngest actually, you guys you're gonna tell like it is. You guys just have a different point of view about things altogether. I love it. So wrapping up, so elections, they're in November. I love it. Everyone has a good opinion that women should be treated right. Elections are in November. We're seeing change already. We're seeing stock market change. We're seeing senior citizens evicted, unfortunately, gas prices. So basically the economy is on hold in every way. It's kind of bad right now. So specifically senior citizens, this was in Tampa, Florida. And this place actually shut them down and made them move. And some of these people had been there for years in this home. What could this mean for families that are actually relying on their grandparents and things like that, and the elderly? What could this mean for the elderly is when they battle politics? And apparently there's an article out that this year will be different. What are your thoughts? Can this year be different? What does this mean? This kind of hit close to home for senior citizens and for families and things like that? I mean, we're kind of seeing a rhythm here in gas prices, and we're seeing a rhythm here with the elderly. This is not good. Bethany, what are your thoughts on this?
So as far as like what's happening to the elderly, I'm not too sure if that's connected to the election. It does seem to be more of an economy and business mismanagement sort of deal. I have seen like the school I was going to, they're struggling financially right now, and it's very hard to watch. Like the program that was super excelling when I went there, it was so great, is now kind of floundering. Like they have 3 students in one graduating class, and I'm like, how are you still here? But you know, communication is important. If you are struggling financially as a business, do not take advantage of your.
And senior citizens they will struggle. They won't have a home to vote for anyone, type of thing. So
Yeah,
it's gonna be bad.
I mean, where would they go? Like, and they have specific needs. Like, as you get older, your body changes. Like, I've seen it in my dad, unfortunately. It's kind of hard to watch, but like, he pulled his hamstring the other day because he missed a step. But to be fair, that step was pretty dramatic. It was like this right outside a door, and we didn't realize it was there. But it's a lot easier to injure yourself or you have these other needs because your body is wearing down. It's just the way the process works. So they do have specific needs. So it does make it harder to find an apartment, a place to live. As someone with allergies, I struggle with it because my pet allergies are so severe. I can't be in the same building as a pet, at least from a living space, which is very unfortunate because I love my cats and dogs. I love seeing them. But I just can't live in the same space. It just doesn't work. I would probably die the first night, to be honest. So it is hard to see that. And seniors have a lot of problems just in general with other things too, like home care, assisted living, that sort of thing. There's been a lot of abuse in those cycles. They're, one, super expensive for the family. Two, often understaffed, so then the patients are then mistreated, or the way that they get these people sometimes isn't right. They will overlook a record and they get the wrong person in, and then you have elder abuse happen. I saw that happen with one of my grandparents. I didn't understand what was going on at the time because I was a kid, but then I learned more and more as I got older, as one of mine was still surviving. It's hard to watch. So to be honest, a lot of these issues aren't new. So I don't really see it as a huge influence on the election, but I will say it is an important issue to consider, one that doesn't get a whole lot of representation. No one really pays as much attention to it as it should get. So I'm glad we're talking about things like this because no one really pays that much attention to it, and there should be more attention paid to it because we're all going to end up there at some point unless we all die super young. So, it's just important to pay respects to our older generations. They deserve just as much as respect. So it is important to consider that. And I know that people are paying a lot of attention to gas prices and the economy. Of course, that's something people are paying attention to. I mean, I pay attention to it all the time. Money's tight. You do what you can. I'm interested to see what'll influence the election, but I'm not too sure just yet because there's so much happening right now with the two potential candidates. One, he could probably end up in a nursing home himself. The other probably ending up there too, but he's got legal battles going on, so who knows? But it's a very interesting cycle that we haven't really seen before with the age of these candidates. And how together they are. So it is a very interesting thing to see. I don't like the idea of living through it because it's kind of scary, but if it were in a history book, I'd probably have a good time laughing at it, But nope, we're living through it. So not a whole lot we can do other than just do our best and hope for the best. But those are kind of my takes.
So Bethany says she read then be in the action of it. So yeah, if it were published, we'd be all up in it. Eugenia, how do you think this affects things? How do you think this is affecting elections? Senior citizens won't have a home, and they're doing away with senior citizens, it feels like, so that they can focus on the generation that matters and their vote, which is they're going to get crazy numbers in that sense, and it's going to lean in a certain direction. So all kind of intertwines. What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm trying to be a positive person and not get too involved into the news because it can get so dark. It's actually scary to come
and I'm
back
poking the bear.
Scary to come back to America this year, especially the elections just terrify me. I think this country is in a rut, everybody is canceled. the people are separated at any level. There is really no free speech. I don't believe that it does exist in this country anymore. There's so much censorship. I grew up in post-Soviet times, and how many times I remember that type of system where we were punished for anything that doesn't go with the propaganda. Plus it affects the economy. They were trying to make a society of workers, and I feel in a lot of ways like now people are just being replaced by robots, and so many people are losing jobs, and it affects the economy. And there's definitely 1% of the population who's building bunkers and buying water supplies and farming systems. And, you have to be just very, very shrewd to survive, and to see the big picture. And of course, it is unfortunate that it affects the most vulnerable part of the population, the kids and people who don't have a voice, the seniors, people who don't bring as much, energetically to the society, so to say, being of use. They're the ones who get discarded first and not taken care of. Unfortunately, it's just a human nature. I could see in our country now, it's impossible. I had to get my family American passports just because they don't care about the senior citizenship. It's impossible to survive on pensions. And unfortunately, also the caretakers take advantage of people who are not having the voice, or suffer something. I think it's a bigger question for humanity. I think it's not about the elections or like, are you right or are you left? I think it's so much bigger, because at the end, I've seen all these parties being connected and everybody's corrupt, and it's not changing. You can be a puppet and go for one thing, but the agenda, you have to really go deep down, like what is happening to humanity. And is it true that like Agenda 2030 in Economic Forum, where nobody owns anything, and there's all kind of agendas. I think it's really important to have self-critical thinking. That's the skill that we're not being encouraged to take, not in the school system, not anywhere else. And yeah, I think it's just really unfortunate. And as much as I try to stand up for people who don't have the power of the voice, but it is very easy to discard in society, which I think in the US and the West, we're all for ourselves. It's not a community-based society. I think a lot of times in the Eastern cultures, mothers take care of the grandkids, grandmothers take care of the grandkids. There's a whole system of a community of support. Where just, when I came to this country, people were shocked that my mom was helping with my baby. Like they said, oh my God, in a million years, I would not change diapers. We have like, cleaning lady for that. It's a society of a system. And it's unfortunate that we're losing that touch of humanity and compassion and empathy. I think there's much better examples in the Eastern society of respect of the elderly, like in Japan, or even in India. As chaotic as the country seems, there's a lot of spirituality and support and communities. And I'm not in a big awe of this country at this moment in time, I have to say honestly.
What now, why? There's nothing wrong, but I'm asking why in particular you feel that it's question versed with humanity, not so much politics, but a question of humanity. Why is it just more of a question of humanity to you, about the elderly and about that kind of thing, how they're all intertwined?
I feel like we're brainwashed by a lot of news, and you can read, especially if you travel a lot, in one country can be one thing, and then the other country can be completely opposite. And, a lot of times people don't connect the dots. That's why I don't like to bring politics into a thing. It's so easy to disconnect, starting from all these big events that are happening. I feel it just disconnected people, and like, oh, beliefs, are you right? Are you left? Are you pro this? Then I don't talk to you. Disconnected families, disconnected, co-workers. And in a society where I is the first thing, where it's all like, okay, me, and like I'm not caring about the other person, like that's a bigger problem than politics.
Right. I love it. You're saying it's we're already in a society where it's I and it's me, and you're saying they're pretty much doing away with humanity, and the elderly taking care of them are part of the humanity. And I love that. Everyone sees it like that, because there really is an agenda there, and in a way. And I'm with you on that. we want to bring humanity back. Sasha, what about you? Are we bringing humanity back here?
Holly, I think that we have
Okay.
a lot of
What are
humanity.
your thoughts?
Yeah, I think we still have a lot of humanity. I moved to LA almost 8 months ago. I came from Denmark and Copenhagen, and I see that here they take a lot care of elderly and have that kind of respect, you know. So I see that on streets, and I see that in supermarkets. I see that everywhere, taking care of their grandparents, and you know that it's a very nice kind of solidarity, you know. But I can also see a difference when you see other states in America, where the states are different, you know. And as you mentioned, in Florida, Tampa, there, you know, it's a different climate, you know, it's a different political climate as well. And I don't know that much about it, but what I've seen so far is that, you know, it's a they're trying to get new political agenda. I think there's some changing happening, and it's all over the world. And I see that also in Denmark. And we have had a lot of problems with, you know, the elderly in Denmark not being treated well, and not being visited, you know, by their by their children, and by the family just in general. They don't come and visit them. A lot of loneliness. So I see that for the future, that a lot of elderly is going to be lonely, not having housing. So there's like a lot of, it's a collective problem, and it's not just their problem, it's our problem. So we really have to think about that in the future, and we need to take care of our elderlies. And especially because it is also to do with humanity, you know, to show like who are you as a person. We just talked about like being an asshole, you know, like treating people with disrespect is just not okay, you know. Domestic violence, or treating children bad, or treating elderly bad. No one should be treated badly, you know. And I see that right now, that there are some parts of the world where people are really treated poorly, and it's a horrible situation to be in. In Denmark right now, we're close to maybe a war happening soon because of Russia, and that's terrifying to see, and to also see how, you know, normal people cannot afford housing anymore because of inflation, because of the housing prices are just gone up, you know, like crazy. Rents are gone up, and you know, if you have to buy a place, it's just too expensive now, more than ever before. And so there's a lot of people that are going to become homeless, and then what are we going to do about that? And that's also happening here in the States. So I see it as a collective kind of problem for the whole world, and how we will solve it, I really don't know. You know, it takes a lot of work, and with the, you know, with the president election coming soon, that's also going to be very interesting. I think it's a very interesting period right now to be alive in, because there's so many things happening. Like I've never, ever seen that before, ever, you know. And when you look back at history, looking back at like what happened in the old days, you know, nothing has been like this. And with AI going in to take jobs from normal people, and robots, you know, like that is the future, you know. We are living in the future, and how are we going to cope with that? You know, we don't know, because it's the future, and there's just so many things that can go really, really wrong, and there's also a lot of things that can go really, really well, you know, and could be
Right.
very
Yeah.
optimistic, you know. So it's
Yeah.
also, I think we have to
And
have,
it's all, and it's also like what's going to happen to other states. It kind of makes you think
yeah,
about what's going to happen to other states, like you said, where you're from, and
good role
my Tampa.
model.
Oh, that's just Tampa right now. Let's
Yeah,
all
no,
ignore it. Yeah, let's all ignore it.
collective problem,
And
because
so,
you know, Europe sees how America does things, and then Europe copies that as well. And so I think it's today is such a really important day to show a good example. Memorial Day, like show a good example and show respect to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So speaking of, I love that. I love those answers. So speaking of the future and speaking of futuristic and ideas and stuff like that, Cannes Film Festival just happened and that was a good win. Star Wars versus Planet of the Apes. Star Wars, as we all know the story of it. We all know the story of Planet of the Apes. They're kind of at war right now, if you will, like during this season. It's kind of like a Star Wars versus Planet something or other, yet one was influenced by another, ironically. They just celebrated their 47th year. So happy birthday, happy anniversary to Star Wars, right? On May the 4th. May the 4th be with you. Both are streaming on Netflix. Yes, and like I said, this actually was just publicized hugely. I want to know thoughts on this. I want to know, is anyone a fan? What does everyone think about it? Are you Star Wars? Are you Planet? What do you think about their concept? And did Star Wars influence Planet of the Apes? And what do you think about the Cannes winning? Where are you thinking that's the direction that's going to go? Eugenia, I'll start with you.
I mean, we can have another show for another hour if you go into like archetypes of Star Wars and the, perpetual fight between good and bad, evil, and every archetype is just so deep. Like if you go into the storytelling of the apes and human nature, and there is a reason there's so many fans that are attracted to that. For me, it is interesting to see like the details and all these evil things and good things, and like I think it's a never-ending battle. Cannes for me is more about independent filmmakers, just coming back from there. I kind of think it's okay to bring a little bit of Hollywood, but I'm so supportive of so many storytelling that are not maybe a remake of a remake. That's another question, like how many remakes can you do with the use of AI, and I understand there's all nuances and you just milk on the, on the fan base, but for me, Cannes is just more interesting to see people who have diverse stories and make you grow as a human. There is archetypes that are universal, and like how do you play with them in the storytelling medium, I think is much more interesting for me than just follow this one story. But I do understand the big fan base and the Hollywood kind of attention to to remaking that.
Yeah, I love that. You're right. You're definitely right on that. Let Bethany. Star Wars is really is a kind of a worldwide and Planet of the Apes. What are your thoughts about that right now?
So I've watched all of the Star Wars except for like the most recent ones, just because the originals are really good, so I don't see the point in continuing to do it. Especially since Disney owns it now. Much as I love them, I kind of don't though. Just how they treat people sometimes. I'm like, yeah, I know you're in it to make money. Just treat your people right. But anyhow, I actually haven't watched Planet of the Apes. I've heard about it. It just hasn't been big for us. I am from the Midwest. I don't know if that has anything to do with it. We're all like Star Wars, Star Trek. That's usually the battle we're talking about over here. I haven't really heard about Star Wars versus Planet of the Apes as of yet. So it's an interesting concept. I don't have Netflix. Otherwise, I would just go ahead and binge some of those just to get the idea. But I just watch YouTube for movies. It's free. I like free things. They get paid through apps and stuff, but yeah, I mean, there's some good ones on YouTube right now. I will say some of the original movies for like Frankenstein's on there from like the 1930s. If you're into fashion, there's some interesting pieces in there. Very good. Watched it. It was very interesting to look at the fashion. I didn't pay as much attention to the acting as I probably should have. But there's some really good films out there. And Star Wars is very interesting, I will say. The storytelling's really good. The way they put the costumes together was fun. You know, I just it's a good series. They did a good job with the world building there. So
Interesting. Okay. So Bethany is a Netflix freebie junkie, and she goes and she says, oh, yeah, whatever's interesting. Eugenia won't say whether she in a battle whether she prefers a lightsaber or a gorilla at her side when it gets intense. Let's go to Sasha. Sasha, what are your thoughts?
Well,
Lightsaber.
I love
gorilla?
them both.
Go
I
ahead.
love them both. And I think that they
Okay.
have a very, interesting perspective, and I think it also shows, and it's again very interesting with how our society is today, because it's such a, it's so diverted, like it's so split, and it's to do with all these wars that's going on, and with people, and with AI, and with is taking over right now and the future. So I think that Planets of the Apes and Star Wars has that kind of effect on people, that they can actually mirror themselves in it. Do you get it? Like, so they can see themselves actually in it, and almost like cope with the situation. We always use movies, or like acting, like going to a theater play, just to see something that reflects a self in in our lives, so we can recognize ourselves in it, and also not feeling alone. So there's some kind of purpose in the end of it, and I think that's the thing right now, is that we are watching something that actually mirrors the political climate, how the world is right now. It's almost like kind of a doomsday kind of vibe going on. What is going on with us? Are we going to move to Mars? Are we going to be captivated by AI or robots? Like, it's such a weird kind of, it's almost like a fantasy, like our world is becoming like a crazy fantasy, of all kinds of aspects coming into, yesterday I went down to the Apple store down in downtown LA, and it's such a beautiful place. It's an old theater and it's rebuilt, but it's so beautiful. And I saw these like Vision Pro from Apple, and the glasses where you take them on and you see like the world in a different way. So you can actually, it's almost like having a smartphone, but they're just put on your eyes, and then you can walk around and you see the world like how you want to see it. And I think that's how we are right now. It's like we want to see the world in our way, and that creates kind of a war in itself, because we have so many things, we have so many options. And if you don't think the same way that I'm thinking, well, then I cancel you. Then I don't want to have anything to do with you, or I don't want to do. That's the thing that's going on right now in our environment, the political climate, in the world in general. We see it also to do with the whole global warming. Some believe it, some don't. We're all really like split, as people, as a society, and we need something to unify us. And I think that unifies us in some sense when we see Planet of the Apes. Okay, then we unify. Or Star Wars, it's very interesting. And it just yeah, I think that right now we just need something to cope with our situation, and then eat some popcorn.
Absolutely. And
Go on a
entertainment,
date.
popcorn. Oh, okay.
Yeah, go on a date.
Yeah, go on a date, go have popcorn, and if they make you mad enough to cheat for the popcorn, just use a lightsaber. No, I'm just joking. Or gorilla, gorilla.
Yeah.
No, kidding. Yeah, we won't go there. We won't go far down that rabbit trail. I love popcorn though. Yes,
I love popcorn.
Lightsabers, Planet of the Apes, figuring all that out.
Yeah.
Go ahead. What did you say?
No, I'm just like thinking that we need to be good to ourselves, because when we're good to ourselves, we can be good to others, and I think that it's good that we treat ourselves good, and, have self-love, self-care. And when we have that, it's so much easier to give that out to other people.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. We need to
Love you.
celebrate that, and we will on this Memorial Day. We absolutely will.
Yeah.
Well, ladies, here we talked about other things, Star Wars. We talked about citizens and humanity and all these beautiful subjects, and each of our perspectives, women fair, all the way, even from that to entertainers and what they could do better. And and some things are to be left under. And substance abuse isn't always the key. Some things are accidental, and some people actually do the right thing, right? Hopefully, more will, right? Ladies, thank you so much for being on Fashion News Live tonight. You've been grand, lovely, Sasha, lovely and beautiful Sasha, lovely and beautiful Eugenia. Thank you so much for your time, and we wish you all the best. And we loved how you looked at cans. And Bethany, thank you so much for joining tonight. I don't see you often, so thank you so much for your time, ladies. It's been a blast, and be sure to watch FNL on all social media platforms, and we'll see you next week. Bye.